Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. React if you have to. Yeah.
Don't know the time, yeah. Just know that I'm, one of a kind, What's on your mind, What hard to find, Beautiful mind, Still in my prime, Just know that I'm here. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside. It's not insomnia, really. I'm not a zombie, a thriller. I'm moving calmly but iller, not playing party or tiller. I ain't been partying either, but at the Garden of Eden, just drinking water and eating. It's probably not what you're thinking, but I hardly been thinking. I feel like hardening season. I know that's hard to believe in, and that's just part of the reason. I'm catching up to you because you waiting, you sleeping. I feel like hardening season. I feel like hardening season. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I don't toss and I don't turn. There's some lessons I'ma learn. Usher said to let it burn, but my life isn't his concern. I don't toss and I don't turn. There's some lessons I'ma learn. Usher said to let it burn, but my life isn't his concern. I am not the one, and I am not your Neo. I am not a hero, and I am not a hero, and I am not your one. Yeah, and I'm not your Neo, and I am not a hero. Yeah, and I'm not a hero. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. Too many nights, not feeling right, Too many nights, not feeling right, I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside. I can't be still inside, still inside, still inside.
For the people who been holding me down. 2 times for the people who been holding me down. That's 3 times for the people don't be knowing me now. I just move out of sound, and I just move without sound. And 1 time for the people who been holding me down. And 2 times for the people who been holding me down. And 3 times for the people I don't see them around. I just been moving around. I just been moving around. Yeah.
Somehow you turn around and everything feels upside down. Look back and say to me, I don't know what I've been missing. Oh, the same place, the same things look different somehow. Oh, the fine lines, the deep seas that keep us out. On your own before the time runs out. With a reckoning, reading all the words you sent me. Oh, the same place, the same things look different somehow. Oh, the fine lines, the deep seas that keep us out. Shadows of the mind, oh, cannot move. There's no chaos you can't see through. 'Cause nothing's broken, you can't make new. You are greater, you are greater. So come and break through. Comprehend. Oh, your power has no end. You are higher, louder than the echoes of our past. Oh, you silence what we can. You are louder. There's no mountain you cannot move. There's no chaos you can't see through. 'Cause nothing's broken, you can't make new. You are greater, you are greater. So come and break through. There's no mountain you cannot move. There's no chaos you can't see through. Oh, nothing's broken, you can't make new. You are greater, you are greater. So come and break through. Hey. Come and break through. So come and break through. Yeah. Come and break through. Come and break through. So come and break through. So come and break through.
Hey, and welcome to CCV students. We're seriously so pumped that you're here with us today. We're gonna have an incredible time. We're gonna engage in a time of worship together, and this is simply a time for you to connect with God. So I want to encourage you to do what's comfortable for you. Whether that's just belting it out as loud as you can, or if that's just taking some time to be still and listen to God. After that, we have a message that we hope will encourage and challenge you. Once you've watched the message, we encourage you to spend some time connecting with the group. If you're not in a group yet, we would love nothing more than to connect you with one. Just text the word students to 72020, and someone from CCV will reach out to you and get you involved with our community. We would love to chat with you if you're watching live. Just hit us up in the chat below and let us know how things are going. We have a dedicated team that is ready to answer your questions, to pray for you, or just listen if that's what you're needing. We are here for you, and you are absolutely welcome here. All right, it's time to worship together. Let's do it.
Hands up. I close my eyes and colors fly. There's no hiding from your grace. I can't deny your heart for mine, and it's unrelenting chase. I was on the edge of deception, caught up in my own hesitation, until your love took over me. Yeah, let's go. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. Come on. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, then I find life. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, students, let me see you move. Come on. Let go.
The highway is calling me to a life unlike before. The Father's heart is beckoning, and I can't resist no more. And lead me in the ways of devotion. I don't wanna get caught in emotions. My heart is only for you, Lord.
Let's sing it loud. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, then I find life. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, come on, somebody jump, hey! When I let go, 'cause when I let go. All right, front to back, hands up like this. Students, can we just make some noise tonight? Come on, we sing. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. You ready? 'Cause when I let go, then I find life. Oh, 'cause when I let go, you know what to do. Come on. When I let go, come on, let's sing it loud. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, then I find life. Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, then I find life. Come on. Oh, it's getting hot in here, students. Come on, let's get loud with this next song. Hey. Your favor waits within the future. My dreams are small compared to yours. Why should I worry about tomorrow when I know that all I gotta do is look to you? Come on, we say that every little thing's gonna be alright. Yeah, now this side, come on, hands up. Say every little thing. gotta do, come on, is look to you. Yeah, all I gotta do is look to you. Let me hear you guys, every little thing. 'Cause every little thing's gonna be alright. 'Cause every little thing's gonna be just fine. Do you believe that? 'Cause whether I can see it now, I know you will work it out for good. 'Cause every little thing, everything will be alright. Every little thing, yeah. Every little thing, yeah. Sing it with me like this. Every little thing, yeah. 'Cause every little thing, yeah. Whether I, come on. 'Cause whether I can see it now, I know you will work it out for good. 'Cause every little thing, everything will be alright. Whether I can see it now, I know you will work it out for good. Shout it out, 'cause every little thing, everything will be alright. Yeah, students, guys, thank you so much for singing with us tonight. We got a great experience in store. You may be seated.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys sound good tonight. You guys feel it? Woo! Hey, I want to welcome you guys to the high school experience. It is great to have you here. Dodgeball last weekend. How was that? All right, so I know that we have a guys group, AZBC champs. Where are they? You let no AZBC? All right, how about Triple G? None of them came back. Okay, there's 4. Wow, powerful. Hey, we are excited tonight. We're kicking off a brand new series all about mental health. And I know for all of us in this room, mental health, man, it affects all of us in different ways. It could be at home, at school, maybe personally on things that we're struggling with. And we're pumped to be diving in and looking what God's word says about it. God has a ton to say about our mental health and cares about it. So we're super excited tonight to kick that off. I want you to help me welcome Dustin as he comes out. And he challenges us with a very practical message tonight. Let's put our hands together. Come on.
Hey, it's good to see you in this room. Thankful for those that are on our other campuses, you're online. We've got a great weekend in store for you. Several years ago, I was taking my 2 kids camping, and my son was 5, my daughter was 7, and we're up north, we're driving in my pickup truck, and we've got a camper trailer, pop-up camper trailer that we're pulling, and I'm driving down this very obscure, windy road, no one around, and I see that up ahead there's some water on the road, and it's about to get a little bit muddy. So I quickly have this decision to make. Do I stop, try to back my truck up a trailer, go find a dry road, or do I just power through? And because I'm a man of adventure and I'm stupid, I decided to just go straight into this muddy road. As I pull through, mud flailing everywhere, tires start to spin, mud is raining down. I'm uh-oh, this ain't good. I get to the point where now my truck is just about at a standstill. It's not moving anymore, even though I'm still accelerating. So I get out, I look and kind of assess the damage, and I see that my truck is in the mud, but I'm not stuck yet. So, all right, what do? I could back up and go the other way, which was fine, or I can keep powering through. Once again, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna hit the gas. I just think I need to go faster. So I get back in, my kids are distracted, they don't know what's going on, and I hit the gas, and now what was a little bit of stuck is a lot of bit of stuck, right? My tires are going nowhere, they're spinning like crazy, and I get out, look one more time, and I recognize that my tires are now beneath the surface. So there's ground and then there's tires, which if you've never been off-roading or camping, that's not good. So I get back in the truck. My two kids now are picking up on the fact that this is gonna infringe on the camping trip. So I look at them and they look back at me and we're kind of looking at each other, and I'm not asking for their advice at this age, but I don't know what to do, and they can tell that Daddy is out of control right now. I've just ruined this camping experience. I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't get us unstuck. They're not helping, and I actually am just completely at a loss for what to do. So I'm sitting there, it's getting dark, dinner time is really upon us, and I'm hangry, and I'm at a loss for what to do. I'm totally stuck. The truth is, for me, more times than I've ever been stuck in the mud, I've been stuck in my mind. Maybe you can relate, where a little bit of fear, a little bit of worry, a little bit of stress starts to spin around and ping around in my head, and then it lasts and it lingers, and then it starts to actually impact the way that I feel, and then it sort of changes my behavior and what I do. It could be something as simple as I start thinking about my car. I don't know if you drive, those that drive, if you drive a newer car or if you drive an older car. I drive an old car. It's 14 years old. It's got 188,000 miles on it, and every day there's sort of this belief it's gonna die today. Not today's the day my car is gonna implode, it's gonna break because it's old. I think about my body. I'm 41. I'm today's the day my body is gonna break because I'm old. I think about my bank account, and I work at a church. I'm my bank account's gonna break. I'm a pastor. And I start to think about all of these potential fears that aren't really there, but they're in my head. Can you relate at all? I imagine that for most of you, you've had these occasional fears. Some of you, you've actually really dealt with and kind of been stuck in the mode of stress or worry or fear. Maybe you've even identified that as anxiety. And tonight I want to talk with you about anxiety. I want to talk to you about how to get unstuck mentally and emotionally. One of the things that God had been working on in my life over the past couple of years, began about 4 years ago, was I don't know if I would have ever admitted to anybody that I had some anxious thoughts or that I was dealing with anxiety. I actually don't know if I would have recognized that in me, but there was a season in my life when God revealed that, kind of drew that out and pointed out that, no, I've got some anxious thoughts. I've got some anxiety. And he kind of pointed out the root of my anxiety was all control, because I'm a control freak. Anybody else a control freak on any campus? You're yeah. Got some control freaks, I'm sure. But I was dealing with control, and that was the root for me. And over the past couple of years, God's just continued to do some good work in me with this issue, with this particular chapter of my life, and it's not over. I've not conquered. It still is a part of who I am, but perhaps this weekend could be something that is helpful for you, some things that I've learned, things that I've experienced, and some hard lessons I've had to be taught because of anxiety for me. See, I think it's for everybody. I think many people, they're I don't know if I deal with that. Well, perhaps it's that you haven't dealt with it yet, or maybe it's just that you haven't identified that it's actually residing in you right now, because it's easy to cover up. It's easy to cover up because we can cover up anxieties within us by busyness, like just stay really busy, you don't notice. You can cover it up by control, like what I do, control things. You can cover it up with a drink, with a drug, with some type of an addiction. There's probably 100 ways that we can try to cover up our anxieties. But my guess is that if you've not dealt with it yet, you will deal with it at some point in your life. It's kind of a normal rhythm, in my opinion, with life. Sometimes it spikes, sometimes it lasts longer than others, but those spikes take place. I was looking online, I was bouncing around looking through like celebrities and like who deals with this, and came across some random celebrities that deal with anxiety or have dealt with it. Both Kim and Kourtney Kardashian kind of raised their hand and said that they deal with it. The singer Adele deals with it. Zayn has dealt with it. Chris Evans, Captain America, which is ironic, has dealt with it. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, has dealt with anxiety before. Harry Styles has dealt with anxiety, which is like no surprise to anybody. Like, get it? Even the Biebs, Justin Bieber has dealt with anxiety. Which, as I'm looking through this list and I'm reading these people, I'm like, okay, not surprising. Okay, a little bit surprising, not surprising. And then, in all reality, guys, it's just because there's a million other people that haven't raised their hands. These are just the ones that have been courageous enough to say, yeah, I've dealt with it before. I struggle with some anxieties. Here's some of the issue with it. If you've dealt with it before, if you've kind of sensed this in you, what anxiety does is it sucks, okay? It sucks the joy out of our life, our heart. It can play games with our emotions. It actually starts to jack a little bit with our mentality and break that up quite a bit. It fatigues the mind. It actually breaks down our immune system. It can infringe on our sleep, and then it ultimately robs us from the type of life that God wants us to have. Do you know the difference between anxiety and fear? Well, I'll give you a quick visual of this. This past week, I was invited to a meeting where they were going to reveal a brand new song for CCV students, and I was like pumped. It's like, I can't wait, and I'm sure you're excited too. So I go to this meeting to go listen to a new song for you guys. And in walking to the buildings, a couple buildings over to where I am, I walk through the door, and as soon as I walk through the door, there's a gorilla there that jumps out and scares me. Like a man in a gorilla suit. So my first reaction is like I jump because there's a gorilla. Like I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't thinking that there's probably a gorilla waiting for me. Like I was going to listen to a song. Which, by the way, there was a new song that I heard later. It's awesome. You'll hear it someday. So that is fear. Like that's an instinct that God has put inside of you. There's a fear that's real, because if that gorilla was real, I would need some type of reaction so that it doesn't kill me. Fear's kind of a good thing, right? God gave us that. But here's the difference. If I woke up every day now and I'm like, every time I walk through the door, I'm like, is there a gorilla? Is there a gorilla? Every time I walk around the corner, like, is there another gorilla? And all day long, I'm kind of tense, and I'm asking myself, like, is there another gorilla there? Well, eventually, my body's gonna break down because it can't handle that kind of tension for that amount of time. That's what anxiety begins to do in you, is it resides in you. It keeps that fear in you and starts to debilitate your ability to focus and to live normally. I love what Max Lucado says about this distinction between anxiety and fear. He says, anxiety and fear are cousins. They're not twins. In other words, they're like similar, but they're not the same thing. Fear sees a threat. Fear sees a gorilla, right? Anxiety just imagines a gorilla. That's the difference. You ever find yourself imagining a crisis? You ever imagine like tomorrow something bad is gonna happen? Like something bad's gonna happen in school, something happened on the drive home. Like you're just gonna have this point where there's a catastrophe, there's a crisis, there's a problem, and it's just around the corner, just waiting for you. Well, that's kind of the beginning of anxiety. Anxiety asks a lot of what if questions. Maybe you can relate to some of these. What if I don't find someone to sit with during lunch, which may not feel like a big deal to you because maybe you have someone to sit with at lunch, but if you don't have someone to sit with, that can turn into a big deal. What if my friends decide they don't like me and I'm all alone? What if everyone at school sees me make a mistake? What if I get cut from the team? What if I don't find a date to the dance? What if I never find a date? What if I fail at anything, right? What if I get rejected? What if I'm not prepared for the future? What if the president I think should win doesn't? What if my parents split up? You had any kind of what if thought like that and it just stays in you, and the problem is not that you have that thought, but if that thought reoccurs and it comes back to you and it begins to spin again and kind of takes up residence in you. I wrote a couple down that are things that I deal with, like my own personal list that I feel very uncomfortable telling you, but I'll do it anyways. Some things that I think are my own what ifs. I think they're there. I don't know where they're at. I think we've forgotten them. No, I had them in a cool little bubble too, but I'll just share a couple from my heart then. Since technical difficulties are getting in the way. Maybe that was the design. It's like I'm not supposed to share, but I will anyways. Some what ifs. What if I do something that causes me to lose my job as a pastor? And as a pastor, that's all I've ever done. I wouldn't even know where to start. What if I never reach my potential? Right? What if my income goes down and I'm not able to take care of my family, my wife and my kids? What if, and this is a deeply personal one, what if I'm just not enough? What if I'm not enough for my family, my wife, my kids? What if I'm not enough for Jesus? And I can spin on those thoughts. Those are real for me. They can come in and they can rob me of some joy. They can get in there and start to infringe on who I am. Maybe you have your own set of what ifs. But what I want to do tonight is I want to talk about how to get unstuck. Talk about anxiety and how to get unstuck. You may not know that King David, he said this. This is a very important passage. It says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." Hey, this assumes that David, he had some anxious thoughts, right? He dealt with it. We're talking about the king of Israel, David and Goliath, like that David. He had anxious thoughts, but he gave God permission to deal with them. One of Jesus' closest companions, Peter, he said this, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." We're not going to spend much time on this verse, but it's so deep. He's looking at anxiety and he's saying, like, you probably have it. Right? When you have anxiety, hey, there's something you can do with it. You don't have to keep it. You can cast all your anxiety on God. Why? Cares. He cares for you. But another guy that spent a lot of time doing like kingdom work on behalf of Jesus, a Jesus representative named Paul, the Apostle Paul, he is responsible for what is the most highlighted Bible passage online. It's Philippians chapter 4, verse 4 through 8. It's actually an indication of like where we're at as a society because this verse is so highlighted. It's just real. It's kind of what we're dealing with. He writes this, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice." In other words, find your joy in Jesus. So much so that he repeats, find your joy in Jesus. And the reason why this is a little ironic, why this is interesting, is because of where he is as he writes this. The Apostle Paul, he's in prison while he writes this. He's writing to a group of Christians, and he has every reason to be in angst, every reason to be stressed out. He doesn't know if he's gonna be fed anymore. He doesn't know what is gonna happen the next day. He doesn't know if he's ever gonna get out of prison or if they're just gonna kill him. But yet he says, hey, rejoice, find your joy in Jesus. How do we do that? Then this next verse says, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. In other words, like, hey, be cool. I know there's a lot of craziness going around. Like, I know the world has like lost its mind, which is our world right now. Be cool. Why? The Lord is near. We can be calm because the Lord is near. We don't have to be in control. We don't have to understand all that's going on. We can just be calm because we know the guy that's in charge, right? We know the guy that runs this place. So we put our hope in him. And he says, this is the famous passage. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Perhaps you've read that before, or you're just reading this now for the first time and you felt like, okay, do not be anxious about anything. Well, and all of a sudden you have anxiety about having anxiety, how circular that is, like how problematic that is. Well, if you look at the way this is originally written, this is not saying what you think it's saying. It's saying like, hey, as you have anxiety, don't let it live in you. Like, don't continuously have anxiety. In other words, hey, when you have these fears and worries and stresses in your life, as you have those, you take those with every situation and you present those to Jesus. Those are the prayers, like you give those to him. You do that repeatedly with an attitude of thankfulness because he cares. You're thinking, but like everything? Yeah, everything. Thinking like my test tomorrow? Yeah. Are you nervous about something this week? Is something on your mind right now about home, about your team, about school? He's like, hey, bring those to him. Bring those repeatedly to him because he cares about them. He cares about all of the little things that we don't think he cares about. But then he goes on, he says, and the peace of God, if you do this, the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. In other words, when you bring Jesus, whatever it is that's going on inside of you, he then like exchanges in a supernatural way this peace that gives you the confidence and the ability to keep moving on through life so that you don't get stuck. He gives you exactly what you need. That peace. It surpasses understanding. Like we don't quite get it, doesn't make sense, but he provides that for us and it protects our heart, it protects our emotions, it protects our mind so we can keep moving on. But it's this last verse that I really want to zoom in for a second. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, as a result of all of this, whatever is true and noble and right and pure and lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. It's like he's saying this, hey, in the sea of ideas that can plague your mind, when you find yourself like freaked out about what's going on around you, what you need is a list of things and concepts to replace them with. That's what he's saying. Like, I got it for you. I got a list. Think about these things. But notice at the top, notice the first word he puts onto our minds in this list is what is true. Hey, think about what's true. Why do we need to think about what is true? You already know this. Students, the reason why we need to think about what is true, in my opinion, why he put this word first is because so often we think about what is not true. We think about what might be true. We think about hypothetically what could be true, what potentially is true, but we don't really think about what is true all too often. So he says, hey, make sure you're thinking about what is true. Because if we don't do that, we find ourselves just spinning and spinning. And maybe you've been there before. Maybe you've worried and been consumed. I mean, think about this. You get on social media, and the first thing you look at, maybe you did this morning, is you look at your feed and you see what took place last night, and you're like, oh, I didn't get invited to that. I didn't know that's what they were doing. oh, that looked like a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, you start wondering if anybody cares about you. And you start wondering why you didn't get to participate in that. And now all of these insecurities are welling up inside of you. And maybe you like move on quickly, or maybe you don't. And they just stay there. And then you get to the end of the day and you kind of go back to the feet again. And now there's some issues with like you see other people and you just start flipping. You're not really thinking, you're just flipping and you're looking. And then you get off your phone and you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm not sure I'm happy with who I am. I'm not sure I like what I see. And then there's these feelings of jealousy and contentment and envy, right? You feel all these things, and these things are not true because they have nothing to do with what Jesus thinks about you. He's the only one that dictates what is true. He's it, right? You know, this message for me is deeply personal. And I wanted to be careful that what you hear from me is not a message where I'm like throwing out something that is like a quick fix. Like, oh, just do this and it's over. Because I don't think that's real. In fact, most of the time in our messages, that's not real, right? You know, faith and walking this life in Jesus just always takes a little bit of effort, a lot of bit of effort. But I want you to process this, right? How do we deal with our anxious thoughts? Well, whenever we get stuck, let truth pull you out. Whenever you find yourself stuck, you let truth pull you out. And how do we do that? Practically, how do we do that? Well, Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He said, his word is truth. That's it. Other people can magnify or amplify things that he says about you that could be true, but they don't generate from them, they generate from him and what he says about you. Here's some things that Jesus thinks. Jesus thinks you're worth more than you can imagine. Jesus thinks you're more than your appearance, right? So when you look in the mirror, well beyond what you see, your eyes can be deceiving. You're worth more than that. Jesus thinks you're more than your mistakes, and some of you are really hung up on some of the things that you've done in the past, and it's hard to get past that. That might be a trigger for your anxiety is when you reflect on things that you've done. That's not God's design, is for you to continue to go back to that. You give that to him, and you move on. He's good like that. Jesus thinks you're worth dying for, to the degree that if you were the only person alive, you still would have been worth him going to the cross, not just for all of humanity, but just for you. Jesus thinks your future is in his hands. Those are good things that Jesus thinks. Okay, whenever you get stuck, let truth pull you out. So I'm with my kids, I'm in the car, I'm in the truck still, and it's only been a couple of minutes. I'm like not sure what to do still. And off in the distance is this gigantic, what looks like a monster truck, like cruising right at me. The tires are as big as I am, which is not that big, but you get it. Like he pulls right up to the front of our truck and like rolls his window down. He's got a trucker hat. He's got like a camouflage flannel thing. Looks like real backwoods. Got a thick country accent. I think he has dip in his mouth, but I don't know. And he pulls up. He says, "Y'all stuck?" And you know, there's like a moment where, because I'm sarcastic, I want to like throw out a quick sarcastic thought, but I was like, well, I want him to help, and I don't want him to kill me. So I was like, we're stuck. Got my kids here, we're camping. Kind of looks at it. You want me to pull you out? And in a moment of saying something dumb on my own, I was like, well, yeah, you think you can do that? Kind of has this look like, well, yeah. Like, he's in this gigantic truck that would have no problem pulling out my truck and camper. I'm like, well, yeah. So I said, yeah, please. So in a matter of like 2 minutes, he does this tow chain thing, pulls my truck out. Like 60 seconds later, no joke, I am back on the road. He's like redeemed my camping weekend with my kids. My kids are like high-fiving daddy because he did nothing. We're like, woo, daddy's still in it. I'm a hero. I gave them back some confidence that I know what I'm doing. I wasn't worried, kids. I knew what I was doing. All because this guy was willing to help. But this is what we do. This is what we do. We're like, God, can you help me with my fears? God, can you help me with really what's going on in my mind and help me kind of sort through it and figure out about my doubts, my concerns about reality? God, can you help me with what's going on this week in my home? God, can you help me with my anxiety? And God's like, well, yeah. Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I have? The power that I have at my disposal to help you? Well, yeah. Whenever you get stuck, you let truth pull you out. I want you to hear a story from a student that is no longer a student, but knows exactly what it's like to be stuck. Check this out.
Anxiety is stress, nervousness, ruminating, lonely, worrisome, hard, painful, scary. Anxiety is emotional. Anxiety has always been a part of my life, and the soonest and the earliest I can recall it happening was probably about the age of 7 or 8. I think as a child, I didn't really know how to necessarily cope with that. I would go to sleep at night and prepare for sleep, and I would just like pull out my hair. I would literally just look at my hair follicle and I would just pick it every single night, and over time I was bald. Fast forward years later in college, taking counseling classes and therapy and all that, it was like some form of disorder, and it was a form of coping. A point where my anxiety got so bad, where things needed to change, I want to say high school. I started dating this guy in junior high, like 8th grade, and then beginning of senior year, I was just like totally in love with this guy. He was my everything, and seemingly I was his everything. We had just crossed boundaries emotionally, physically. After that happened, things just started changing between us. After we had broken up, I was just starting to spiral out of control. I remember just thinking, like, I don't want to live for the rest of my life if I can't be with the person that I just gave my everything to. I started contemplating what life would look like without me. And there was one night in particular that I made my way to our family's medicine pantry, and I just downed whatever I could find in the cabinet. And then I remember thinking, like, okay, this is like my last day on earth, and I don't even care. I was waiting to just die, and nothing happened. And so the next day, I went back to the medicine cabinet. I could not comprehend, like, how is this not working? I remember hearing people saying things like, it's the grace of God. I kept just repeating that in my head, like, okay, it is because of the grace of God that I am here. Dustin Tappan had a message. He had just said, you are here for a reason. And he didn't say it to me. He was telling it to all of us. But I just held on to that. Like, I am here for a reason. If I look into the future, I don't think anxiety is ever going to go away. I think it's very much a part of every single one of us, but what matters is how we choose to cope with that anxiety and what we do. As a kid, I was pulling my hair. In junior high, I had to be involved in sports. At high school, had to be involved in sports. And today, I have to spend a lot of time with the Lord. And that for me is walking every single day and praying out loud. Also, truly focusing on healthy habits was what started to pick up for me, and started serving in like every ministry in the church, and getting more professional help as well. It's no different today. I have to do the same things. Going back to the basics, like my husband always says, exercise, sleep, being surrounded by people who love me and who I can love. Anxiety is not something that we can just fix. It is always going to be a part of us. All of these things are going to be a part of us, but it's not who we are. And when we can truly accept these things about us and know that it's not just gonna go away, anxiety gets a little bit easier. Me discovering Jesus didn't happen just overnight. Again, I grew up in the church. I knew who Jesus was. I read the Bible all the time, but it wasn't until I was at rock bottom where I truly accepted who Jesus was, and me knowing, okay, it is because of God's grace that I am still here. Still to this day, it's a constant love that I am figuring out with God, and I'm experiencing God's love in completely different ways. But I would say it is truly because of Jesus that I believe that I've been able to somewhat figure out how to cope with anxiety.
Hey, you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason too. You know, whenever you find yourself stuck in your mind and your emotions, let truth pull you out. He cares for you. What we're gonna do for a few moments is something we've actually not done together for a long time, and we're gonna take communion together. We're gonna do this in our spaces. And if you're unfamiliar with communion, or if you've yet to get one somewhere on your campus, they'll give you a little cup of juice and a little styrofoam wafer thing that tastes great. And you're gonna take this as a reminder of what Jesus did on the cross for you, his death and burial on your behalf, his resurrection for you. But this is a perfect time, students, listen up for a second before you start figuring out like how to open up. This is a perfect time for you to give to Jesus your fear, to give to him your worry, to give to him your stress, and ultimately to trust him with your anxieties. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for this church. Thank you for your word, and that you've not just left us to try to figure out life on our own, because it's pretty tricky. And right now in life, it's a little messy. But that just means we're to lean even heavier on you than we have ever before. Thank you for being faithful. Thank you for being still and remaining a God that loves us and pulls us out of the messes we find ourselves in. We love you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. You can take communion.
We invite any Jesus follower to join us in taking communion and remember the great love he showed by giving up his life for us. In these brief moments, let your thoughts be guided by honesty with God and truth from his word. Take a moment to be honest with God about something that is causing you anxiety today. Focus your mind on a few things you are grateful for and thank God for placing them in your life. When we begin to center our thoughts on God, His peace extends to the darkest and most hopeless parts of our mind. When He becomes greater to us, the world and its stresses, worries, and pressures begin to fade away. What is one thing that is out of your control that you need to feel God's peace about? Speak to me. You're the only voice I want to hear. Walk with me. Show me who you are as I draw near. If you're not in it, then I don't want it, and let all else fade away. Take the whole world, but give me Jesus, and let all else fade away. Satisfied, you're the only one I'll ever need. Holy fire, burn away the old that stands between. If you're not in it, then I don't want it, and let all else fade away. You take the whole world, but give me Jesus, and let all else fade away. And let all else fade away. Students, just focusing on life can be so exhausting. And if you came here tonight with a heavy heart, know that you can find rest and refreshment in Jesus, because His name is the only name that matters. His name brings you life and it brings you peace. So I encourage you to sing this out with your heart surrendered. Join me in this. And your name is the only name that matters. And your heart is all that I desire. And not my will, but yours alone forever. Here's my life, have your way. And your name is the only name that If you're not in it, then I don't want it. We'll let all else fade away and take the whole world and give me Jesus. We'll let all else fade away. Yes, let all else fade away. And let all else fade away.
Thanks so much for hanging with us tonight during our high school experience. I really hope that you found something that spoke to you or allowed you to connect more deeply with God. Comment below if there's something specific that stuck out to you. We'd love to know how you were challenged. We're confident that there's no better way to experience God's Word than in community. So, again, if you're not plugged into a group, what are you waiting for? That is the space where you'll find accountability, you'll be personally challenged, and you'll have just an awesome time making new friends. Go ahead and text the word students to 72020. We'll get you connected as soon as possible. If you want to get all the updates on everything CCV students, give us a follow on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back next Sunday at 5, so we hope to see you then. And if you can, we'd love to see you at one of our campuses. You can get more info about that on our website, ccv.church. There you can learn more about our church and find which campus is closest to you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.